Okay, so this is episode 3 of the Drift Car Build. I, of course, am the RC Devil. Now, I just want to give you guys a heads up that there's going to be some pieces of footage that weren't in this video, and that's just because my SD card broke, so those have gone missing. And but, of course, I'm going to cut in and tell you what actually happened. On top of that, I originally didn't want to do a video this long about the transmission, but, of course, there was a lot that needed to get done onto it. So I don't want to have one of those videos where it's just 5 minutes, and then boom, transmission's back in the car, everything, like that. I want you guys to see all the details that go into this car from start to finish. So that's why this video is all just going to be focusing about the transmission. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so now I'm going to be taking out the transmission in 240 and putting all new seals in it. Got the front seal, the back seal, a little gasket for the front too, and then also a new drain plug I'm all putting in. Then I also have the manual plate that goes in between the transmission and the engine, because it still has the auto sandwich plate in there, so this whole bottom part doesn't have, so the whole flywheel is exposed right now. And I got some new transmission fluid and also got a short shifter to put in. But basically the reason I'm doing this is because it always seems to be dripping like a little bit of oil, nothing too concerning. But then once I actually got the car running and the whole front suspension done, I took it out for a day, and then I parked it in the driveway, and then I took it out again at nighttime, and then when I came back, I noticed that there's a huge puddle on the ground, and then I realized that it came from the transmission. So when transmission heats up, basically the oil is flowing out of some hole in there. So I'm going to take it out, clean it, put all new seals in it, make sure everything is fine, and then I'm going to put it back in. And then I also have the new plate that needs to go in anyways. Okay, so then after you're done cutting your hand on your exhaust, as well as getting oil all over your hands from taking out the drain plug because you fail really hard, you can go ahead and admire all the metal that's left on your magnetic drain plug. So these are all little metal shavings from the transmission. Wow, look at that, that's a really big chunk. It just shifts so smooth, Okay, so here's all the fluid in there. Okay, so just like I said, undid those 2 bolts. Drive shaft is now on the ground. This is the end that goes into the transmission. So we are good as of now. So transmission is really only held in by these 4 bolts right here that hold it to the frame. And we also have all the bolts that bolted to the engine, and then just a couple extra wires and stuff. Okay, so basically I broke all of these bolts. By breaking, I mean like, where you just start to undo them. I didn't actually like break them, but okay, broke them loose, that's what I did. So I just broke all these bolts loose. Okay, so these are all 6 of the bolts removed. As you can see here, like previous owner did some sketchy stuff with the car. So rather than getting like the correct bolt, he just stacked some washers on there, thereby making it shorter like that, which yeah is good, but still is not the proper way to do things. Okay, notice how there were 6 bolts there. There should have been 1 other bolt that bolted to the top of the bell housing, which is apparently the hardest bolt to get on a 240 as far as the transmission goes. So this car was converted from automatic to manual. And when that guy put the transmission in, I'm assuming he didn't want to deal with putting that really tough bolt in at the top, so he just left it out. So I have 1 less bolt than what's needed on the car. Okay, so I think it's like 5 or 6 o'clock right now. Finally got the transmission removed. I started at about 9 o'clock in the morning, so you can imagine how long that took. The main reason was that my motor mounts are polyurethane, so they don't have as much sag in them, I guess, as stock ones. So we were struggling to get the transmission out because it kept hitting the transmission tunnel and it wasn't clearing properly. So then we had, after 2 hours of trying to get transmission out, then we went ahead and jacked up the engine by the oil pan, unbolted the motor mounts, put pieces of wood instead of motor mounts in, and then lowered it down on those pieces of wood, thereby lowering the engine, giving us more clearance. And then once we did that, we were able to drop transmission. And then once we dropped transmission, we still couldn't get it out because the car was still too low. So then I had to take out the jack and then put it under the diff, then jack up the diff, and then because the jack was under the diff, we didn't have any another rolling jack. We had to drag the transmission, and just like basically the whole bell housing here was on the ground, and then we just held on to the tail end of it, and we were dragging it across the ground in order to get it out. Okay, and now it's finally out. Yeah, and then also I'm going to show you guys right now, like the whole picture, because as you can see, like how dirty I am. Okay, and then all the floor is wet right now because oil dumped out of the transmission when we were trying to get it out. So the whole ground right now has been sprayed with like degreaser and scrubbed by me and then washed. And then, oh yeah, then the ramps and everything like that. So I just want to give you the full picture of how it would look if you're going to do it at your house. So just maybe think twice about whose driveway you do it in. That's it. So now that the transmission is out of the car, I'm going to go ahead and wash it. Because it has all this gunk buildup on it and a lot of oil spilled on it. So what the plan is going to be is to tape up all the holes, and then we're going to take it to one of those quarter car washes where you can use the power washer yourself. So we're going to take it over there, and then we're going to use their power washer, and then we can spray off the transmission. And it's not only the power washer that we're going there for, but it's also their drain, because even if we were to power wash this at let's say your house, then you're going to have all this oil and grease and gunk in your drain, which you don't really want to have. So their filtering system is a little bit better, and I'm pretty sure most of their water gets recycled as well. So we're going to go ahead and then take it over there to the coin operated car wash. So the first thing we're going to do is plug up all the holes on the transmission. This way none of the water gets inside the transmission. Alright, now we're going to seal off the hole going to the drive shaft. So I made sure that all these are tight. So now let's head to the car wash. Alright, so now we got the transmission here. So all we're going to do is spray it with some degreaser and let it soak, and then we're going to hit it with the power washer. Alright, so purple power degreaser. We're just going to spray it. Okay, so here we are, all done. So now the transmission is all clean, we can go ahead and replace all the seals on it. This is the rear seal right here. So we're just going to remove this seal that we have and then put this new one in. Okay, so now it's all greased up. We're going to go ahead and install it. Okay, so now we're at the front of the transmission where the bell housing is at. And now we're gonna replace the front seal as well as the gasket around this plate right here, and also the throwout bearing. Okay, now your whole throwout bearing is out right here. Now we can remove this plate and then take off the gasket and replace the front seal. Now the 5 bolts are removed, so everything should just pop off. There we go. Okay, so just multi-purpose grease, like the rear seal. So now I'm gonna remove all these sensors right here because most of them were leaking, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put RTV on it and then create a nice new seal so that we don't have any issues. Also, this sensor right here is for the reverse light, and I don't have that, so I bought a new sensor to put in there. So basically tighten it down into there. I think you're supposed to wait 1 hour, and then you can tighten it another quarter to half turn. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and install the short shifter while I'm waiting. So now this is the gasket for the shifter. Before I put this in, we're gonna go ahead and use some gasket sealant on it. Well, I couldn't record installing it, but now it is installed. Okay, this one's all covered around the edges. I remember I told you some of my videos were lost, so one of them was for doing the throwout bearing. But anyways, I still got that put on, and let's continue. Alright, now I'm going to take my impact wrench. I'm going to undo the bolts holding the clutch in place. Now I'm just going to go ahead and remove the flywheel bolts. Okay, so here's the clutch out. It's the actual clutch right here. And then there's the pressure plate right there. And then we also have the flywheel right here, which we also took out. So now I'm going to go ahead and replace that automatic sandwich plate with this manual transmission sandwich plate that actually covers the flywheel. Here's the old auto transmission plate that was in between the bell housing and the engine. And then there is the manual transmission one, which I bought and I'm going to put in now. So as you can tell, there's a pretty big difference here because this whole lower section is missing from the automatic sandwich plate. So what happens is the whole bottom, the bell housing, is exposed, and then you have basically the whole flywheel exposed, all the clutch and everything is just sitting there. So you can get all that grime and dirt in there. Not a very cool thing to have. So now I'm going to switch over to an actual manual sandwich plate in between there, so that way it's going to block everything off over there, and it's actually made to fit it. Okay, so here's the transmission plate installed, and now ready to put the flywheel on. I also did the rear main seal, but that footage was also lost. But anyways, let's get back to putting on the clutch and flywheel. Okay, so there's everything torqued down. I torqued mine to 105 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, so now all these bolts are tightened to 22 foot-pounds, and I've taken out the clutch alignment tool. So now we are ready to put back the transmission. Okay, now the car was converted from automatic to manual by the previous owner, and while doing that, the previous owner wasn't really good, as you can tell, doing a lot of stuff, one of which was the wiring on the car. So I'm going to go ahead and redo the auto to manual conversion wiring, as well as make a connector for the reverse light. And of course, I never had the reverse light on my car because the previous owner never hooked it up when he did the swap. Alright, so here we are. Connector is now done. Alright, now remember, like I said, the auto to manual conversion. So there's this connector, which is completely cut off. All these wires that are just running back to the transmission. See right here, I have the whole loom. So that's pointless to have this thing connected. And then also these two big wires are also in there, and they don't lead to anything as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up this loom right here, remove these two sets of wires, and then wrap everything back up, and then it'll get rid of all this unnecessary junk that's running to the transmission, as well as just hanging around here. A lot of times if you go to the track, they're not going to let you on the track if you have a lot of exposed wires like this. So the plan is basically to neaten up all the wire, make it safer, and then also make it a cleaner looking engine bay. So this is all going to be gone now. Okay, so here's the wiring now, going to the transmission. Okay, so now we're going to put the transmission in. So it's all cleaned up. I have the short shifter. We have all the cables. We have the reverse light sensor now. All the connectors on everything. Then we have new throwout bearing. And then we redid new gasket and a new front seal over here. That's all good to go. And then on the back side we also have a new rear seal. So now we're gonna go ahead and put it in. Car's all good now, just like it was before. Transmission is in place. Transmission cross member is in now. Starter's hooked up. We have the drive shaft right here. So I bolted that back up to the car. Now we're about to put that inside transmission and hook it up. Yeah, that's basically it. Everything else is hooked up. Starter's back on. All the bell housing to engine bolts have been done. So all we have to do now is basically hook up the drive shaft and hook up the rest of the connectors and wires that we have to do. We have to tighten all the motor mounts because those ones were put in as well, and then just double check everything, and then we're good to run the car. Okay, so basically I have everything done. All I got to do is just put some new fluid in there. What I've chosen is some AMSOIL, okay, 75W90 GL4, okay, transmission and transaxle gear lube, obviously. So this is really good, no complaints by anyone. A lot of guys, they run you know, like Redline synchro mesh, and what I don't like about the Redline is, from what people say, is that if the car is cold, or if it's cold morning, then a lot of times you're gonna have trouble getting into gear, but once it's warmed up, it's a good lubricant. But with the AMSOIL, it's really nice. A lot of track guys use it, so that's the one I've chosen. And then I also have some cheap Valvoline 75W90, also GL4, which I flush the transmission with, just so I make sure that there's no contaminants in there, you know, just in case when I washed it there was water in there. Now there isn't, so I know for sure, and I drain that out. That's why the car is still draining. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a new drain plug on there. This is OEM Nissan and it's magnetic, so I'm gonna put a new drain plug on there. And then I'm gonna fill up the, what is it, the fluid, using the shifter hole right here with a little funnel over there. You can't really see it. I'm just gonna fill it up. It should take about 2.4 liters. So these are each 1 quart, and a quart is about 1 liter. So about 2.5 of these will do it. All right then, so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and then fill it with fluid, and then we're ready to go. Oh, and then we also have to put the shifter on. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you kind of bad-ish news of doing all this. I remember when I drained the fluid from when I took out the transmission. Well, when I drained it, I went ahead and measured the fluid, of course, after. So when I measured it, it was at 3.7 liters. Now the car is supposed to only have 2.4 liters of fluid in it. And this was 3.7 liters of fluid drained, and after the whole puddle in the driveway. So basically there was about 4 liters in there. So what I'm thinking happened is that transmission was way overfilled, and so when it got hot or whatever, I don't know, it was seeping out of some hole, maybe out the top of the shifter for having that much fluid in it. And so if that is true, then I really didn't need to take the transmission out anyways, because it's really just a problem of the transmission being way overfilled rather than it actually having leaks in it. Anyways, continuing. The bolts holding the transmission cross-membered in place to the frame of the car, you know, all those bolts are cross-threaded. So the previous owner, rather than taking the time, the 1 extra minute of your life to line up the bolts properly, he went ahead and just jammed the bolts in there. So all the bolts that hold the transmission to the body of the car right now, every single one of them are cross-threaded. Just ruined a chassis basically, because you couldn't take an extra minute of time. Okay, anyways. Oh, okay, and then on top of that, my reverse lights still do not work. Somehow. I checked my wiring, I'm pretty sure I've done everything right, but for some reason my reverse lights still don't work, so I don't even know. Anyways, sorry for my rambling right now, but I just want to let you guys know everything that happened, and then of course the aftermath. So this is the end of episode 3 of the Drift Car Build. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and of course stay tuned for episode 4. If you want to keep updated on everything, you can go ahead and subscribe. If you like the video, of course, you know, like it, because I like that. And then also, if you have any questions or anything, you can just leave it in the comments, and usually I try to respond to all questions in the comments, of course, within 24 hours. So, alright, I am the RC Devil, and I'll see you guys next time. Make it rain!